Okay, everyone, good evening and welcome to Solve4X. My name is Robert and I work here at Google with developer relations. So basically, I care about all kinds of technologies and products and startups and everyone. I really like people. So I used to give presentations at conferences, but I've actually gotten promoted, which is actually a good thing. So now I'm going to be today's roadie for this event. So that's basically my part. So if you want to talk about any kind of Google stuff, you can come and find me later, or I'll just show you around the premises. But Peter's your host tonight, and he's going to talk about what's going to happen. So welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So hi, yeah. Can I hear myself? Sort of. Warmly welcome to the very first and maybe only Solve4X event in Stockholm. I would like to welcome you as part of the Google Developer Group, which our roadie tonight is actually bossing over. So he's my handler in Gero speak. So be nice. Don't tell him if I do any mistakes here tonight. Solve4X is a series of events. I'm a developer, by the way, I'm a programmer. So that's sort of the convoluted reason that I'm standing here right now. I'm also sort of a theater monkey and entertainer, so that's also part of that reason. However, the reason you are here is not because you want to see me specifically, but because you're interested in, I hope at least, in the Solve4X event. I'm going to tell you a short story about it, that it began as an internal thing in Google X, or the X Labs. I don't know really what the correct term is. And then it spread. So when I was at the developer event in Mountain View last year, they asked who of all the 400 different country Google developer groups would like to set up this kind of event. I'm like, me. And what is it afterwards? And, and everybody wanted to do this. And I was crazy enough to send in my application, and I was sadly enough chosen to do this. So I said, yes, I don't have time for that. But if you want to do something done, ask somebody busy. And now I have that thanks to Robert and everybody, all the Googlers here, basically, to make things work properly. The idea behind the Solve4X, you probably already looked at the site, is to try to find moonshots. And the definition of a moonshot is a project, individual technology that is a wildly ambitious and technological solution to a large problem, with my cursives, large problem. It can be almost anything, but something that is different, solved in a new way, right? And what people that I work with within Google, or the Solve4X organization, has tried to make me do is find strange and technologically interesting projects to present. And the other part of it is to find strange and interesting technological people. That's you guys. Because the second part of this is to get inspired by one of the 4 speakers, and then we'll have a workshop session about 45 minutes, 60 minutes, depending on how much time I feel we have afterwards. And you self-organize in these groups, and then each groups have a short presentation about ways to move your product of choice forward, and how you can, solve their problems, meet their or overshoot their expectations, and generally help them in the ways they need to be helped at. So one criteria is to find really interesting people and projects in the beginning of their very, very ambitious kind of journey. So I hope that you will find them as interesting as I have. And I hope that you will help them to do interesting things more than they already have. And that's my kind of blundering introduction to the series. We have food and drinks here, thanks to Google, our gracious hosts. We'll begin with our 4 speakers. There'll be lots of intermission because we have technology. We have strings of wire and stuff like that. So you can have, a technical break or have another beer or something between speakers. Just one, though. And then we will have breakout sessions. One group, the largest, will be in this room. Group number 2 will be just outside, and we have 2 breakout rooms that you can choose further down the hall, which might have paper and pencil in them.
Sure, why not?
Exactly. and then you have self-organize, be nice, and choose somebody as a secretary or sort of leader who will present your findings and your ideas, what you thought about in the group, brainstorm ways to put the project forward. If you didn't, then present that. It's no problem, okay? And then when everybody has done that, we will go out and have maybe 1 beer and maybe 2. And that's it. So no big deals. Except, of course, for the speakers. And our first speaker is Liisa and her very, very ambitious and successful African weather sort of project. So please welcome Liisa.
All right, good evening. My name is Liisa Petrykowska, and I will today present a disruptive way of making weather forecasts in the tropics. The company that I built now soon 4 years ago is called Ignitia, and we're today located in Sweden, in Nigeria, and in Ghana. So let's start here. Imagine to be an African farmer. You have these 2 hectares that you're going to grow your crops on. You have a family and an extended family of maybe 39 persons that you are supposed to support with food and with income. You have noticed that in recent years, the traditional weather patterns that you're used to are no longer there. The knowledge that you got from your grandmother is becoming obsolete, and you need to find new ways of timing different actions, such as when should you time your land preparations before the season, when should you plant, when should you do your fertilizer applications and sprayings, as well as harvesting. And this is not only truth for one farmer, but it's actually truth for 2 billion people today. So here is a map of the world, and the blue areas, as you can see, we today have very good high quality weather forecast. We learned already a century ago how to make a weather forecast in these areas because we had large, can you hear me good? Yeah, okay. Large high pressure systems, low pressure system fronts, which were fairly easy to detect and follow. But this white area in the middle, that's the tropics, and there, contrary to public belief, we haven't had any weather forecast that is reliable. And the reason is that nothing works the same. The physics are different. There are no things circulating there. There is no Coriolis force there, which basically means that all weather happens by something called convective processes. That means that the sun shines on Earth, Earth heats up and heats the air above it, and hot air rises, and you get a thunderstorm. And this can go from clear blue sky into a massive thunderstorm with heavy rain within 30 minutes. No warning. So the 2 billion that lives in this region today have no access to a weather forecast. 80% of these are employed within agriculture, and most of them are small-scale farmers working for themselves. The World Bank estimates that economic growth in the agriculture sector is twice as effective reducing poverty as growth in other sectors. Why, sadly enough, a lot of these people also live in poverty, which means less than $2 per day. So now the question you probably wonder is, what do we do different managing having a weather forecast here that large global research institutes have not managed to do? Well, I will try to exemplify here. What you see here is 2 identical pictures of thunderstorms. These are just outside of Nigeria, and the red little dots there is raining really, really heavy. And the blue ones, it's raining a little bit less. When we now apply 2 different kinds of models, on the left-hand side, from your side scene, you're going to see how global models work, and on the right-hand side is how our model works. So already here at the initial state, before we even have made a forecast, we can now see that these grids that we're supposed to simulate rain are all smoothened out. So it looks like it's only raining very lightly in these grids, and on top of that, a little bit in the wrong places. And what you might not know is that almost every forecast that you have ever seen comes from one of these 3 institutions. 2 are based in Europe and 1 is based in US. And there are only these weather production companies or institutions that do the actual weather forecast. Then we have thousands of different weather service providers that use the forecast that comes from these institutions and then repackage those and make them into a nice designed product that you can see on your computer. We, on the other hand, we are kind of a little actor on the other side that is trying to hook up onto this industry. And what we can see is that initially we can at least already now simulate the thunderstorms, which means that we understand the physics inside. There are two reasons for this. One is the resolution, as you can see on these grids. You know, our resolution is much smaller. But the second, that maybe is the most important, is that we have found ways of simulating the physics of the convective processes. And it took us just 15 man-years and a group of 10 developers to do this. So it wasn't done overnight, but now it actually works. Let me see here. So it's a very known bias that these three weather-producing institutions cannot simulate tropical weather. So what they do instead is that they tune up and add a little bit more rain to this, because they know that it should rain sometimes in the tropics. The result is basically that they basically miss and overpredict rain by a lot. And this leads to an accuracy rate of 39%, which is more wrong than right in a weather forecast. So if you would be a farmer and look at weather forecast on the web, just do the other way around and you'll be fine. Then at least you have 60% chance. Otherwise, of course, you can use our weather forecast that has now proven over 3 seasons having 84% accuracy just by understanding these convective processes. And you could say that 99% of all the tropical weather is actually, you know, caused by these these convective processes. Why the only 1% that is left is basically tropical hurricanes that you can see on TV coming over US. Those we don't deal with. So if we now look at the real situation, just taken a random day and then taken a picture out from BBC News, it's the exact same background that you see here in terrain. And BBC News thinks that it's gonna rain all over this place. Well, we say, no, 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 wait a second. It's just going to be 2 dots over here and then a little bit of a sea breeze rain on the side. 48 hours later, this is the satellite picture you see. We missed with about 20 minutes in our prediction that was done 48 hours earlier, which is kind of okay in the meteorological world. But we can even see these small sea breeze fronts there, if you would happen to be a meteorologist and know how to look at a satellite map, but it's there, I promise. So how can this technology help the small-scale farmer that we saw on the first slide? Well, the whole farming cycle is dependent on weather, which means that already from the first thing where you plan what kind of crop should I grow this year, you know, you could then use seasonal weather forecast that tells you, is it going to be wetter or drier, colder or hotter? This is not possible to do in Europe because of different reasons, but in the tropics, it's actually fairly accurate predictions to do. While if a farmer now knows then it's going to be a much wetter year, he might choose to go to plant maize that is much more resistant to different plant diseases than groundnuts are. And already here we might have saved his whole yield. And then it continues. When it comes to the fertilizers, that might be the single most expensive input that the farmer needs to buy every year. And he might not even afford to buy it because he needs to borrow money from someone in order to just to buy it, put it out. He needs to decide a day. When should he actually apply this fertilizer? Well, he then takes his guesses if he doesn't have a forecast and goes out and applies for it and really, really hopes it won't rain the next day. Because what happens if a heavy rain comes is that everything washes away, ends up in the ditch, And then you have not only borrowed money for the fertilizer, but you have also lost a lot of your yield. A study from Mali made on 3,000 small-scale farmers showed that by only having this information, in comparison of not having the information, you can there already make 50 to 80% increase in yield, which is quite significant. It's so significant that it would even solve the whole food insecurity in Africa if people would have access to this, and if it would be true for everyone, of course, to have such yield increases. Also, of course, it's a huge risk reduction, and it creates a resilience for the farmer. The way we do our weather forecast is that we collect a lot of satellite data. That data that happens to be around the equator is often very high resolution and great data, because you have the geostationary satellites. Those are the satellites that, like, they follow Earth's rotation, which means that it looks at the same place all the time, which in our case now is West Africa. Then our weather forecast, the data goes into a supercomputer that we have here under Stockholm, under Earth, where it's processed in our model. And that's just a lot of algorithms that needs to be solved. After that, it goes down to our office in Accra in Ghana. And here an operational meteorologist looks at this for 45 minutes for 15 countries. And this is the only manual part of our weather production. It goes to this middle building that in this case is a mobile operator. And the mobile operator sends it out to a list of subscribers. The farmer can subscribe on this information by only paying 3 cents, measured in dollars then, for every time he's receiving the information, and it's taken automatically from his airtime. So, which means that he doesn't need to think about, how to pay for this. Because a write-up investment of $6 before the season has started, before you have any yield to sell, it's so large, so a small-scale farmer couldn't afford that. But this way, he can actually access the information. And then we have developed a very good way of also signing up. It's a really dialing only *455# anywhere in Ghana, and then you start subscribing on the forecast. A few technical issues here we had was that they don't have any GPS phones, no smartphones in Africa, especially not the farmers. Why we needed to know the GPS location, because in the tropics, it might rain on one side of a village, but not the other, which means that this is extremely local. But thanks to the telecom operator, we could go and look at their past data, of course, with the consent of the subscriber, to figure out where they spent their daytime, which then we assumed was the farm. This is currently the campaign we are having in Ghana. Don't let the rain beat you is a saying that can both be positive and negative, but it basically means that you get rain unexpectedly. We have learned a few things along this trip about how to distribute information so farmers understand it. It took us about 3 years to understand that the only thing that the farmer actually wanted and was interested in was to know, is it going to rain or isn't it going to rain? And all the other information as temperature, humidity, wind, all of that, was unnecessary because they didn't know how to take action upon it. So now we have simplified the information a lot. The second thing we learned was that most of our subscribers are semi-literate or totally illiterate. But still, they prefer to have a text message, a written text message of the forecast rather than a symbol. And then you wonder why. Well, because symbols is something that we in the Western world have learned to understand, and we have seen on TV maybe every day or on our computer. But an African farmer has never had access to such an information. So for him, it could be a spider, or something else. But with this text message, he could go to his chief of the village who could read and then explain to him, what does this mean? Lastly, I would like to show you a real example from the field. This is Mohammed. I met him a few months ago. He and his extended family are 32 family members together. He has last year had help of our weather forecast actually 3 times, where each of these times it basically saved his yield. First time was that we announced in the beginning of the season that this season is going to be drier than normal. So his fellow farmers around, they continue traditionally to use dryland rice. They have always grown dryland rice. That's what they do in this area. But Mohammed decided, like, no, this year I will go for drought-resistant eggplants. So that he did. And then it was time to plant. Then Mohammed looked at his monthly weather forecast that said, it's going to be a dry period of 2 weeks that is coming up. And if I plant now, my little plants won't make it through that period. His fellow farmers, they just continued to spread their seed and unfortunately lost it all. And Mohammed made a late planting, but got up his plants all right. And the third time was when he was about to put out his fertilizer. You know, the day before, he got a weather forecast that said it should be okay, but then we changed our mind and sent out, no, we know now that it's going to rain heavily tomorrow. Why he decided that don't go out to put out his fertilizer then, but to do it later that week. And then we saved also his fertilizer. It all ended up in a very happy story because now the whole village are eating eggplants and they made new recipes on eggplants and how to eat and use them, but no dryland rice. Thank you. Challenges.
Så, snabba frågor. Eller vänta, förlåt. Sorry.
Vill du ha challenges?
Of course I would like the challenges.
Okay. All right. So let me go through a little bit about our current challenges. Well, number one is that we have found a great way of scale our product in Ghana. I'm right now living in Nigeria, and this is a total different ballgame. We lack the context to get into the telecom industry. Agriculture products are generally not seen as an ICT product and not profitable. Why? There is a big risk aversion from the telecommunication companies. So if you happen to have a few contacts somewhere there, please share. The other thing is that we're right now recruiting because we are getting more and more customers for every day. About 1,000 new farmers join every day on our subscription, which means new challenges. And if you happen to know anyone who is like to become a scientific programmer, that is great at Unix systems, that remembers that really old language of Fortran, then you're welcome to apply. We're also looking for a sysadmin and a mobile developer. Yeah.
And now we thought to have you have 2 or 3 quick questions for Liisa before she takes the stage. Yes?
You mentioned that you're working in Nigeria and Ghana, but I think Mali and Malawi actually have a bigger problem concerning farming and agriculture and hunger. Have you considered going into those markets where they don't have a big population, but they've actually got a bigger problem?
Yes, we have. Actually, it seems like we can suit this up in Mali very fast now because Orange gave me a call 2 days ago. And Orange is one of the biggest phone companies worldwide and said that they right now have had very good luck with launching an agriculture product and they would like to have a weather as a part of that product. So we are getting there. We have currently, making the weather forecast already for 15 countries. So it would be silly not to expand it, because for us, it doesn't make any difference if we make a forecast for 1 farmer or for 10 million farmers. The cost is the same.
Next question. Next time for now.
Have the big established companies, have you woken them up yet?
Not really. I think they are still semi-sleep and hoping for the best. But producing weather forecast is something not many people do. It's a very, very niche thing. And because it's something that generally don't have any private actors in it, I don't think that they have been woken up yet. But it will come, I'm sure.
I'm sure too.
Okay, one last question from Fernanda. Why? Or maybe.
No, I think.
Hello. About the scaling and the usage, I was just thinking about the possibilities to have it implemented in other fields. I'm just thinking, in construction, you're putting on a roof of a house and you need a certain kind of weather, or other kinds of, may it be transportation or construction, or even connected to local security services. I mean, there's a big storm coming. What can local authorities do in order to prevent, we're going to close a school now? Or is the company also considering expanding within other kinds of fields?
Indeed, we have plans for that, but so far, they are pretty far away because we're so small. So we just manage one field at a time and try to hit that vertically. But as you say, one of my investors usually says, this is like kryptonite or kryptonite. What is it called in English? This, it's just applicable everywhere. But I'm not as optimistic as he is.
We have some speakers. Okay, 4. 5. But we have one quick comment from Susanna, then one ultra quick comment for the man in front of her.
Hi. So this may be a silly question, and you may have mentioned it already, but how much does this cost for the individual farmer?
Right. So the cost is 3 cents for every text message. That adds up to, during a rainy season, between $5 and $6 for a season.
And how many months is a season?
Depending on where you are. If you're on the coast, it's 8 months. If you're up in the north, it might be as short as 4 months.
Okay, so how much would that be in 4 months? Sorry, my math knowledge sucks.
That would be around $4.
That sounds pretty reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Thank you.
Do you work outside Africa also, in Latin America or Central Asia?
We haven't come there yet. No. Unfortunately, we
Okay.
will. Come and join us.
Sorry, thank you. The thing is that we could have actually just one speaker and lots of questions. And I have to be a very bad boy right now and say we have to cut this sort of short. Be able to speak to Liisa later on. But now we have a short commercial break without commercials. And then next speaker, Linus, who is also very interesting, I promise you. So.